And I heard this young boy, actually he became 18, and he finally got his driver license. So he goes to have a conversation with his dad. And says, Dad, I got my driver license. I would like to start driving the family car. And the father said, okay, let's make a deal. If you improve your marks, if you keep your room clean, if you keep the driveway free of snow, and if you cut your hair, I will let you drive the car. Okay, couple of months goes by, he comes back home with impeccable report card. True to his word, he's been cleaning up his room. Driveway, it's been clear from snow. So he comes to his dad, said, Dad, I think it's time for me to drive the car. And the dad says, not yet, you haven't cut your hair. I said, well, Dad, I've been thinking, and you know what? I bet that Abraham had long hair. I bet you that Joseph had long hair, and Moses had long hair. And the dad said, yeah, and I bet they walked everywhere they went. I want to talk to you today about why are you crying to me? And not to me. Those are words from God, actually. Part of this week's Parsha. God said the famous words repeated in every generation, every household. Why are you crying to me? You will see what God meant when God said that. And yes, this is the Parsha where we read about the crossing of the Red Sea. And every time, I don't know about you, every time I read about the crossing of the Red Sea, the first things come to mind is this beautiful midrash about Nachshon ben Aminadav. Have you heard it before? Yeah, if you come to Shari Zedek, you probably heard it every year, either from Rabbi Green or myself. It's a beautiful midrash. It's about it's something that is not in the Torah, because the Torah, all we read is that they crossed, right? The waters open and they crossed through. But in the words of the midrash, it said that when Moses commanded the waters to open, they didn't. And they were still stuck there in between the Red Sea and the Egyptian army. Until, the midrash says, this character, who was one of the slaves that was living in Egypt, his name was Nachshon ben Aminadav. He decided to go and try crossing the Red Sea even before the waters split. And midrash said that as Nachshon was going through the waters were splitting, and eventually they all were able to cross through dry land. That's the beautiful midrash of Nachshon ben Aminadav. But we have to understand why midrash were written, right? Midrash, they don't supposed to be factual information. Midrash were written by rabbis to teach us something. And they usually respond to a verse in the Torah that needs to be explained. That when we read it, it's not so clear, or there is missing information. So the midrash comes to give us some more contextual information of why that verse is part of the Torah. So, in other words, the midrash of Nachshon ben Aminadav is coming after this verse in the Torah that God said to Moses out of the blue, said, why are you crying to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. Those are the words of the Torah. Why would God tell that to Moses? Why are you crying to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. Nothing happened with the waters. Well, in order to try to understand that verse, the rabbis wrote the beautiful midrash of Nachshon ben Aminadav. It's a beautiful thing. Because the Israelites were there in between the Red Sea and the army that is coming after them. And we read in the Torah that they told Moses, we want to go back. You know what, Moses? We'd rather go serve the Egyptians rather than dying here. And this is very interesting because it helps us to understand what's going on in their heads. What was the mindset of the Israelites after they left Egypt and they found themselves in between the sea and the army? And the rabbis explained that there were at least 3 different mindsets in that group. Okay? Mindset number 1, they freeze in fear. They froze in fear. I think we can relate to that, right? When we have a challenge, that sometimes our reaction, we freeze in fear. What do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We don't confront it, or we don't try to escape. We freeze. There is no action. There is no action. And they said that was reaction number 1 of some of the people that they left Egypt. Number 2, they wanted to go back. So what happened is sometimes when we are confronting a challenge, when we have to go through certain difficulties, we go back to old habits. The same habits that we were trying to break to become better. But as soon as there is some resistance, first reaction we have, let's go back to the old habits. Very bad, very, very bad advice. But there was the mindset, some of them. Option number 3, and we see Moses doing this. Who also didn't do anything, but they prayed to God. Nothing else. They had the problem in front of them, another problem behind them. All they did was to pray day and night. And somehow this parsha, and somehow the midrash of Nachshon ben Aminadab, is that the right reaction is none of the above. We should not freeze in fear. We should not go back to old habits. And we should not sit down and just pray to God. What should it be? What God said to Moses. Why are you crying to me? Tell them to move forward. The right thing sometimes, when we have a problem in front of us, is option number 4. And that is to keep moving forward. And to see, as we walk, as the water of the Red Sea split in front of us. But what if they don't? Well, let me tell you something. If you stay where you are, you will never know. So at least you have one more option, which is to move forward, which is very interesting because it's frightening. And you know what? Even about that, about the fear that the Israelites felt, you have to understand that this week's parsha, when it's describing them leaving Egypt, it uses a very interesting Hebrew word, chamushim. You know what chamushim is? It means armed. So here you have a group of 600,000 people leaving Egypt, and they were chamushim. They were armed. And you tell me, what can 600 chariots from Egypt do to 600,000 armed people? Probably not much, but they were still afraid. Do you realize this? They have the power to defeat them like this. 600,000 versus 600. I don't think the number of 600 chariots was random in the Torah. Because then the number of the Israelites is described at 600,000. So it gives you a graphic comparison. So you can tell the different level that they had. And yet, they didn't realize what they have in their hands until Nachshon ben Aminadab taught them the way. Keep moving forward, and then you will see how powerful you are. So this is a beautiful reminder to all of us to don't freeze in fear. Don't try to go back to the old habits. Don't just sit down praying to God. Move forward and see how the waters of your Red Sea open up as you walk. And just like the Israelites, when you make it to the other side, don't forget to give thanks to God. Shabbat Shalom.